Hello, and welcome to the Dank Christian Memes podcast. This is Broclen from the future with a little bit of info at the top of our episode. First, our 2023 fundraiser for St. Jude has just wrapped up, and we've raised $12,793 as of the time of this recording. We're now awaiting our final donation from Reddit community funds. We will announce our grand total on our next episode, but feel free to check the fundraiser link below in the meantime. Finally, towards the end of our episode, Broclen from the past mentioned some ideas that the Dank Charity Alliance didn't end up using. It's probably pretty obvious which ideas we didn't pursue, but I want to clarify that this episode is from the planning phase of the 2023 fundraiser. All right, back to Broclen from the past. All right, so I'm going to invite last up on stage here. They've had their hand up for a little while. We're actually, we've talked about a lot of subjects on this Reddit Talk podcast thing, but we haven't talked about Dank Christian Memes too directly. We had our kind of crazy mod interview last week, and I feel like we talked about some things there. But I thought it would be cool to finally, talk about us a little bit. So I think we have one question in the comments. I'll take it, and then I'll let you guys answer thereafter. It said, "What's your favorite Dankest Christian meme?" I can't choose favorites. There's a lot of good stuff out there, but the ones that make me happy or the ones that make me laugh are usually something creative. If not a new format, then a new twist on an old format. I like seeing, there's a lot of, there's some low-hanging fruit memes that get passed around, and I know a lot of folks enjoy those too. But I like something that's, a little innovative, does something a little bit different. But I couldn't pick a particular meme in an ocean of Dank Christian memes. What about you, Jacob? You see quite a few memes that come through as our other moderator.
So one of my favorite church jokes that has circulated forever, and I've seen variants of it here, and it's my favorite one every time, is the classic old, "Why didn't Moses bring any unicorns on the ark?" And the answer is because Moses didn't go on the ark.
Oh yeah, the misdirect.
It's a classic. It's one of my favorites.
I do like the left behind ark scenario, like strange either mythical creatures or like some horrible Photoshop animal. You're like, yeah, not everyone deserved the ark.
Yeah, or the dinosaurs that missed the boat.
Yeah, such a shame on the dinosaurs. What about you? I don't know to what extent you guys actually hang out on Dank Christian Memes versus just joining us for our talks. Do you have any favorites, any sort of themes or formats that tickle you?
Yeah. For me in general, the church ones / Christian ones are like, I guess some of them can be funny, but they come from such a specific place. I think I've made the comment before, but it's like Christians do this, and it's just like, well, not at my church, so that's not particularly funny. so I get where that comes from for people, but that being said, those don't typically make me laugh that much. The ones that make me laugh are the ones that are super, super clever because they're biblically based and so funny. Like there's one on there right now where it says something about like a pro-life aunt, and it's like a still from I think the Ten Commandments movie, and it's like something about like Pharaoh looking at your pro-life aunt saying that God won't kill a baby or something like that. And it's stuff like that makes me laugh because it's like, okay, I see where they're going there. They sort of have some understanding of scripture. Those are the ones that make me laugh the most, honestly. Whenever it actually makes me look at scripture and go like, oh, that's absolutely funny. Always whenever there's something about Peter, or anytime there's something about John beating Peter to the tomb, that pretty much gets me every time. I don't care what the meme is. If it's something about John beating Peter in the race, I'm probably going to be laughing.
Nice. Does anyone else want to jump in with any of their favorites before we take another question?
Yes, I haven't seen it in a while myself, but Coffee with Jesus. Coffee with Jesus is
that's a comic series, isn't it?
I believe it is, but it's used for a meme template pretty often as well. I mean, as I've seen it before, but Maybe it is a comic series, but I'm more familiar with it as being posted as a meme.
Most comic series have at least one or two that are well memed if they've reached, some level of popularity.
Yeah, it's to me it's pretty solid. It's almost like it's at the same level as the Kermit the Frog, drinking tea meme. It's like, okay, but shut up and drink your coffee. That sort of attitude.
There's one that I posted as a GIF a while back, but it's like one of the Robot Chicken shorts, and it's a person like tied to a stake, and everyone is around him brandishing rocks, and Jesus walks up and says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And then Jesus pulls out a rock and smacks him in the face with it and says, "Blammo," because presumably Jesus is without sin. So, I guess I deserve to give a little bit of props to Robot Chicken. I thought that was cute and somewhat clever.
In the comic variation world, I know it's a bit of a different tone on the source material, but anything that uses like a chick tract as like a meme template, I find hilarious. Like
what do you mean?
For instance, the most popular one is they hated Jesus because he told them the truth.
Oh yeah.
Where it's just, you recognize the art style, you know what it is, but it's being used for something that's just so wacky and silly and detached from the source material.
Buying Fortnite V-Bucks won't make you happy. They hated Jesus because he spoke the truth. So I don't think we have any more questions in the comments. I wanted to ask you, Jacob. So for the most part, the only subs I've modded other than Dank Christian Memes have been very small, only intermittently active, if at all. So by and large, most of my modding experience is just with Dank Christian Memes, but you're out there in the archaeology world. So what do you see as different or sort of unique to Dank Christian Memes from a moderator perspective?
Well, most of the communities I moderate on have some sort of like historical theme. So one way it stands out is it kind of, at least for me in my sort of skewed experience, it's detached from a lot of the weird in-joke culture of like online history spaces in a lot of ways. But there is also a lot of crossover there. The other largest sub I moderate on is Rough Roman Memes, which I imagine is large enough that a lot of people here are probably in there. And, you see the same people around sometimes. So, but it's a very different environment. The discussions people have here are, and ultimately the things they argue about, I suppose, from a moderator perspective, are very different. They tend to be, I think Dank Christian Memes has this interesting situation where, by and large, it's treated as a wholesome place by its subscribers and creators. And certainly I think we think of it that way as well. But it also attracts a certain type of troublemaker as well. And so it's unique in that regard, in that it's got very good vibes, but also a high occurrence of a certain type of shenanigans, which I imagine people know what we mean by that.
Well, I think that we get, folks that are very concerned and very worked up about particular things. And I'm glad we have a reputation for being wholesome. And I think some of our content does really turn out to be wholesome. But I think today we've got some folks duking it out on the subject of abortion a bit. So I don't know if people walk in expecting 100% wholesome 100% of the time. I don't want to sell folks, I don't want to oversell us in the wholesomeness department, because we do kind of get into it sometimes. And I think that's part of, I don't know, in my opinion, you guys feel free to speak up, that like it is a spot where people can come compare notes, and as long as you remain civil, then we're going to let you have that discussion about the pro-life aunt talking to Ramses or you know, whatever it turns out to be. So my question to you guys is, do you think such a conversation like that meme, which is trending right now as an example, does that count as wholesome because we're having like theoretically a conversation that isn't going off the rails and you know, attacking people? Or is, you know, is it like I said, where we can only be wholesome to the extent that maybe the Bible, our source material, can be wholesome? What do we think of this?
Yeah, I'll definitely be really brief in my comment and just say, yeah, with the last part, what you said is important. It's like, well, what do we define as wholesome, right? And I think for most Christians, that is the difficulty that we deal with on a consistent basis, is sort of the concept of goodness, and what we're talking about now, wholesomeness, is like, well, it's not defined by us and our sensibilities, so to speak, biblically speaking. And there's definitely two different metrics of goodness. A biblical metric, a godly metric, and a societal one. That said, I haven't dived into the comments on that particular meme, but the meme itself is just, to me, just, again, it's just clever. I don't have to be invested in what some internet stranger thinks about that so much, but I do recognize that for some people, those are third rails and areas of deep passion. So I do respect that as well.
What do you think, Sentient Gorilla? Where's the line in wholesomeness when it comes to, you know, kind of sorted source material like the Bible, where, you know, we have some great stuff. Jesus loves you, and also like some people with multiple wives, and then, you know, we got some situations in the Bible.
So are you asking, do I think it's Dank Christian Memes' responsibility to be wholesome, or are you asking, does it serve the conversation to not be wholesome? Exactly. What's the question exactly?
I think my question is more what qualifies. So I guess I'm kind of treating Dank Christian Memes like a fandom sub here, and I'm treating it as like a Bible fandom sub, you know, including the New Testament. So if we are a fandom sub of the Bible, to what extent can we expect ourselves to be wholesome? And I'm guessing that applies to almost every, like, on a level that would apply to any, you know, Christian or Christian affiliated community.
So if the message of Christ is if the message of Christ is that he came to earth as God made flesh to die for our sins because he loved us so he could redeem us, then yes, that is a wholesome message. And, you know, as a community, we can strive to do our best to portray that. But also there are other there's other things in the message of Christ that's in the Bible, obviously. I mean, I don't mean to sound like I'm retreading what you just said. But we would, as a community and as a body of Christ, we would be doing ourselves a disservice to ignore the harsher realities. And Christ certainly didn't do that when he came to earth as God made flesh to die for our sins. So I think that while it's definitely great to have fun, wholesome memes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with acknowledging the reality and the darkness of the world that we live in today.
Yeah, you know, maybe I've let a few Christian moms, church ladies talk to me a little too much and convince me of a more sanitized view of things, which is, I think, attractive sometimes, right? Sanitized view can be a simplified view and can make things easier. But yeah, we do ourselves a disservice if we remove that depth from the conversation. Jones in the cut, did you want to contribute anything before we move on to another subject?
No, I mean, I always have the same Christian meme that I like. It's the one about Jesus having, 12 friends at the age of 30, which I just always thought was a good one.
The greatest miracle of all.
Greatest miracle of all, having friends in your 30s. But no, nothing. No, I watched Black Jesus this weekend, so that was cool.
I'm not. Is this a particular like? Obviously, I'm familiar with Black Jesus as a concept. Is this like a movie or a show?
Oh yeah, it was a show on Adult Swim, and it's like Jesus resurrected in Compton. It's actually a pretty funny show.
It's glorious.
Yeah.
It is glorious.
And from the talk that we had about Jesus, like probably like in historical context, it's pretty. I feel it's pretty accurate.
Interesting. All right.
Second and third, those sentiments. It's a good show.
I obviously need to check into this.
Definitely. You know, you have the sensibility, Broclen, to watch it. You know, certainly to your point, there is a space for wholesomeness.
Pops definitely want you to watch that show.
Right. Yeah, there's a space for wholesomeness for certain believers who are still trying to figure some of these things out. But I think you're ready. You're more than ready.
All right, that sounds good. Well, and you guys have heard me. I threaten every so often to figure out how to host a movie night for Dogma, which is one of my favorites. If an entire movie could be a meme, I guess Dogma would be my favorite meme in a sense.
Gotta watch Don Verdeen too. If we start hosting movie nights, I'm gonna make everyone watch that one. I not very many people have watched that, but that's the one that's about the biblical archaeologist, and it's a comedy about him. And he has to go find these artifacts, but he can't, so he keeps making things up.
Oh shit!
Wait, what is this called?
Don Verdeen. It's not a very old movie, but it's a good one.
Thanks. I see Broclen. We have a question. Sentient Gorilla put a question down there. I don't know if he wants to come off mute and say it, or if we're moving on, or what.
Well, sure. We have Sentient Gorilla. Let us know if I should just read it or if you want to go for it. Someone mentioned Muslim is welcome ? And I think that is something worth noting. Like, we are open. I know that there's, a lot of folks don't realize that Muslim folks have their own story about Jesus, and they can be pretty enthusiastic about Jesus sometimes too. So we do have some Muslims who are hanging out in Dank Christian Memes, enjoying, the Jesus memes that we come up with. And I'm guessing that not everything is super relevant, but I'm hoping, it's worth it enough for the folks that hang out with us. I'm going to ask later about our partnerships. Sentient Gorilla, do you want to take the lead, or should I read your question for you?
I'll read my question. My question is, as a mod, how often do you see memes that are irreverent to Jesus or the gospel? How do you feel about those types of memes? And do you think there is room for those types of memes in the sub?
I think irreverent is a complicated thing. I think we deal in irreverent in a lot of ways. Although I will say, honestly, I think the line really comes down to sex stuff. When people are getting raunchy with Jesus, or heaven forbid the Virgin Mary, like I draw a line there where we're just, it's not a joke so much as it is kind of dumping on things. So that's rarely a difficult call. But some people do get offended by things. Like one of my favorites, and I've seen a number, is like Jesus obviously can walk on water, but the idea that he doesn't have full control over his power to walk on water. So he tries to do a cannonball in the pool, and he just, hurts himself. Or his mom is trying to give him a bath, and he just stands on top of it and refuses to submerge. I think those are funny. Some people, like her, are really upset at this idea that Jesus is in complete command of his abilities as he's growing up. So it's pretty subjective at the end of the day. Do you want to speak on that, Jacob?
Yeah, there are some vile things that get posted sometimes. I've seen anime girl edits of Jesus and whatnot, and usually when you look at the people who post those kinds of things, more often than not, the lewd Bible content, you look at the account and they're like a bad faith poster. They're there specifically to rile people up, so they tend to disappear from the sub after that. But
And we do have a rule against what we call porn posts.
yeah,
That anything that gets too close to that or references things like that, we're probably going to turn down.
they happen. We have a high tolerance for like questioning posts because I mean this isn't a space that will like punish you for being an atheist or whatever. But there are posts that are certainly like bad faith, and those we tend to take a harder stance on because if they're specifically there to make people mad, that's not a great entry point for what should be a place for entertainment and community.
Yeah, and I think we have people who are churched, people who go to church, have a relationship with the church, and people who are unchurched for any number of reasons, whether they're Christian or non-Christian. And it can be at times difficult to tell who is in the majority day to day, post to post. So, given that there's, different people are going to have very different opinions on what is irreverent and disrespectful. And it seems to be that, folks who are closer with the church environment tend to be a little more sensitive than folks who have maybe moved between faith, places. Do we have any other questions before I present the conundrum to our panel?
I wanted to real quick just kind of add to the question that I asked.
You got a follow up?
Yeah, I have a follow up.
Sure.
And there was it took me a second to find it. But there is this I follow this account on Instagram called Memes for Jesus. I don't know if either of you guys follow that or have heard of it. I also follow Church of Laugh. But Memes for Jesus shared this TikTok video several weeks ago by this creator on TikTok and Instagram called Adrian Bliss, and he's this guy that he's he does these quick one-man show videos, and he did this one where it's sort of like characterizing Jesus's miracle of water into wine. And there's this one guy who's like, Jesus, could you maybe give me like a Shiraz? I mean, this is Merlot again. And Jesus is like, it's Merlot or nothing. And and somebody was like, well, what's wrong with Merlot? And the other guy's like, what's not wrong with Merlot? And then the other guy's like, just drink it. It was funny. But then another commenter mentioned, they thought, isn't this sort of irreverent? And I thought about it, and I had to, because I did find enjoyment in it. But, there was just something about it that bothered me once that guy asked that question. Isn't this sort of irreverent? And I was like, why could it possibly be irreverent? It's just cute and funny. And I appreciate that somebody brought up that, I think it was Jacob, that mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Jacob, that mentioned that when we portray Jesus as someone who's, not, some people can find it problematic when Jesus can be portrayed as somebody that isn't in control of somebody who is in control of his abilities. Actually, it was you, Broclen. You said that. Sorry.
Well, yeah. And there's an interesting little theological thing. I think you're right. When people see a Jesus who seems more human, they feel like it's sacrilege. And people who have a high Christology, thinking of Jesus as God, maybe a bit more than other things, don't like that. But, I was taught in seminary that most, we don't know what most everyone believes in the pews, but we do know what most, preachers and denominations hold as their theology. And the idea that Jesus was a combination of both, a divine mystery of 100% divinity and 100% humanity. So if Jesus is fully divine and fully human, it sort of makes sense that he would have these incredible powers and yet struggle to apply them or find limitations on them, perhaps because of his humanness. So, and I think a lot of people in the pews don't really think about the hypostatic union a lot. I think it's something that theologians and bishops talk about, and I don't know that it's something that your average parishioner is thinking about.
And it gets pretty murky, right? Because even to the point of what you just said, I mean, if he's fully God and fully human, then humans have sense of humors, and if we're made in God's image, and so then that would support that God has a sense of humor. So
and there's a lot of space for memes in there, but yeah,
right.
that's a human experience.
So the thought process of where those lines are, I do recognize those things are tricky, but I think to Cynthia and Gorilla's point, I mean, I think at the moment as a Christian that you become convicted about something, then you have become convicted. I mean, that is, and it's at that point that you have to address that within yourself. I think whether it means going, I don't like this, I'm not gonna participate in this. There's some Christian memes on Reddit, not memes, but Christian groups, communities on Reddit that I participate in, and then just kind of seeing the way the conversation goes, kind of to your point, Cynthia and Gorilla, and things that people say. It's just like, this just doesn't feel right, and so it may be right for them, but it just doesn't feel right for me. And that's not even always because of jokes. It's just because of maybe the way people seem to be interpreting scripture. So anyways, I think personal conviction plays the biggest role there, more so than anything else.
And I think that's something that makes us unique, right? That, you mentioned a TikTok channel, which I'm sure is very good and very skillful. But when you post something on Reddit, you can downvote it. And I feel like that's kind of how we separate the dank from the offensive or from the mundane. And that when something isn't working for you, you downvote, you say it isn't working for you. And we have had, I think even recently, some memes that they walked up to the rules and didn't quite cross it. So I left it there so the users could basically rebuke it. And it, sits there with 0 upvotes. So the poster can know this is not something the community enjoys. And I think sometimes that's more important than the mod saying, oh no, that's not allowed. It is, letting sort of democracy rule and people, vote how they feel on these things.
I think based on, I think most posts get accepted actually. It's definitely a minority of posts, even low effort or questionable ones that actually get removed on a given day. When you see the top posts and they're a certain sort of thing, it's because the community actually filters it very well. And you can tell what the community likes based on that a lot of the time. Broclen is more active than me in vetting posts generally. But I would say personally, I remove less than a post a day. And I think he'd probably be similar. It's not that more things tend to be close to the line and within the rules than close to the line and out of them, basically.
Yeah. Also, the biggest thing I think we take down is just reposts. That a lot of this stuff, when it's good, it travels and it makes it round, and it sort of comes around a couple times to us. And there's also, if there's a Dank Christian Memes that's just popular on one of the other meme subreddits, it'll get cross-posted, 15 times if it's super popular. And only that first person who cross-posted, gets to actually post it, and then everyone else is just a reposter. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. But if they're, following the rules, then, the community is going to be the one who gets to have the final say. And I like that about the Reddit. I think that's a good thing. I think there's others who probably don't think that. Cruel Angel is with us. Hey, buddy. Glad to see you again. Everything okay?
Hey, man. Yeah, I'm good. I'm just kind of lurking, just hanging around. It's been a bit of a busy day, so it's been nice just to sit back and listen for a little while.
Well, thanks for stopping in.
That's all good. How is everything? All okay?
Doing good. Do we have more questions in comments here, or is it?
I see one down there. It's about where you went to seminary. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll dox myself a little bit here. I attended Andover Newton Theological School. Both of my seminary schools have changed names since I attended them, which is a little bit weird for me. But I attended Andover Newton Theological School, which is now Andover Newton at Yale Divinity School, and I attended Hartford Seminary, which is now Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. And I did many of my credit hours, but I actually did not complete my master's of divinity, largely because I had had a daughter and I needed to do 2 unpaid internships, and those realities were not compatible. But thankfully, my tradition is much more open to people who have a seminary education but maybe didn't complete their master's of divinity. And, my education was focused on traditional ministry. So, I sort of trained myself as a digital minister by doing my own work and my own studies, on the side. So, it was a unique experience for me, but I'm really thankful for my seminary schools because they were interfaith, that I studied with, Jewish folks in my New Testament class, the occasional Muslim person in my New Testament class. And that was really rich and valuable, I think, which is why, you see that reflected in how I do things at Dank Christian Memes.
Yep, and you can never get enough kudos for how you do, so we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. But I would, to anyone out there, seminary school can be great, but oh my goodness, it is almost always expensive. So, make sure if you're going to invest in seminary school, talk to your advisors, talk to your financial backers, plan it out, folks. It's not easy out there. That's my PSA of the day.
All right. Well, we just invited Kind Ad 8425. Okay, I don't know what all those things mean, but you can come off mute, and if you have a question for the panel, we'd love to hear it. All righty.
Very stoic so far.
All right. Well, we'll just move along.
All right. So I'm going to drop my conundrum. So occasionally, Dank Christian Memes gets called out. There are other Christian meme subs, and there's obviously other Christian subs on the internet. We are the largest, so we get noticed, and sometimes folks give us a little flack on their own sub, which is fine, which is not against the rules or anything. So we had one situation where I think the sub was anti-religious fruitcake. I'm not even sure. Not a particularly large sub, but they had noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had noticed our little blurb to the side. We have a number of items posted on the sidebar of our Reddit talking about the Dank Charity Alliance, and they had taken issue with, among the people in the Dank Charity Alliance was the Satanic Temple of Reddit, and that they were upset by that. And Jacob, stop me if I'm mistaken here, but this actually bothered someone in our Discord, and they actually chose to leave our Discord as a result of this because they were uncomfortable with our partnership for St. Jude, which was very successful and we're planning to do next year. But because it involved a satanic subreddit, they were not playing ball with that, and they felt the need to leave. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it was a somewhat stretched out discussion, but I think there was one person who voiced sort of extended opposition to it, and I think there were definitely others who seemed somewhat uncomfortable with it. It definitely wasn't an issue that caught just one person's attention, I think.
Well, and like I said, it's been a discussion in a number of places. So, this really speaks to, I spoke about my seminary schools where, you are in sort of partnership and in community with people of different faiths. And in my mind, if, our fundraiser corresponds with Lent, so it begins at the beginning of Lent and it ends on Easter Sunday. So if I can convince people from the Satanic Temple of Reddit to give to charity during Lent or during Easter, that seems like a win to me. But I know a lot of people are concerned, especially because there is some debate over whether or not Satanic Temple in general, not just the sub, is, are they just atheists that are protesting with this kind of symbolism and imagery? Or are these people who actually worship the Christian devil? In my experience, they're not, but I wouldn't be shocked if people sort of LARP to that. Jacob, what's your understanding of the Satanic Temple? Should we be concerned? Have I made a grave mistake, you think?
If you like read Satanic Temple materials, it's one way to start a sentence.
Brand new
you'll
sentence.
find that like in their ideology, they're basically just like super independent atheists, basically, where their whole thing is that they want individualism as like the defining force of their way of living, basically, as well as they generally have like an anti-theist stance.
I'd say that's accurate. That the anti-theist, which is why I wonder if there is a contingent on their side that is equally uncomfortable with them being partners with us. I
think one of the things is also because it's the whole reason that like modern secular Satanism exists is to sort of push legal protections around religion. So I think their very joining is participating in that tradition, where they're seeing if we would accept them as a way to like test religious acceptance. And I think in a way, allowing them to participate proves them wrong in a way, right?
There's a little bit of an irony there, isn't it?
It shows that the stance they're taking is, or the stance they traditionally take, the way they characterize people like us doesn't apply to all of us, right? And so I personally understand and share a little bit of the unease around that symbolism being flaunted around. But at the same time, like on a practical level, they're not actually people worshiping Satan. Like they don't believe in Satan at all.
Well, and it's unclear to what extent, for all we know, most of our anonymous donors were from them, or it could have been 3 or 4 people from their mod team who contributed. But we did agree to this partnership together, and I like to think that it sends a positive message about what we can do when we work together. And Satanic Temple Reddit, got the most attention because that's, a pretty flashy name. But Dank is with us, and Pagan Memes is with us, and Wholesome Memes is one of our biggest partners, and I feel like that's been very positive as well, even if they aren't. They say they're content for the spirit. But they are not, religious in any particular way. But I think they fit in great, and we're very glad to have their more than 12 million members as part of our fundraiser. It's really great to have them with us.
To be honest, they're just edgelords when you look at it. I mean, I did kind of follow it for a while because it was like you say, anti-theistic, and as you know, I am atheist. So I mean, I was kind of drawn to it because it was anti-religious in a sense, and I mean it is very standalone.
It serves a role. It serves a niche.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, to be honest, the reason why I really got into it is because it has such an association with the things that I love, which being things like heavy music and dark fantasy games and such like that. But I thought, well, I mean, I'm atheist anyway. I can lean into this, and it is a bit edgelordy. I get it, but like,
hey man, I'm a Christian and I love heavy music. What the heck?
Oh yeah, it's just traditional kind of older folks. Yeah,
I jam out to like Doom soundtracks all the time. What the heck?
Oh no, that's okay. I'm talking like Swedish black metal.
Oh, that I'm interested in that. I'm not like fully into that thing. I'm just like interested in like specific songs. I
Yeah.
do want to point out about like the the Temple of Satan or something. It was like Satanic Temple, or is it?
Yeah, they're the Satanic Temple of Reddit, but they will very quickly tell you that they're not officially affiliated with them because they have lawyers and they will sue anyone trying to impersonate or make them look bad. So
Okay.
they are just a sub, but they definitely follow in that tradition.
So I don't know much about like the Satanic Temple thing, but I do, from what I know about people who genuinely worship Satan, I'm pretty sure it all stemmed from that story of like Jesus walking in the desert for 40 days, where like he ended up getting tempted by Satan, where Satan was like, if you worship me, I'll give you like this whole world, I'll make you the king of everything. And I think that's just basically where the whole like origin of like the worshiping of Satan stems from, for like the actual legitimate individuals who do worship Satan.
Yeah, well, and we should also point out, like, I come from a mainline denomination that was not altogether too concerned about Satan, other than, you know, you being your own worst enemy in many ways, being your own, you know, enemy of your godliness in many circumstances. But there are many denominations, many Christian moms, many Christian individuals that have a big focus on the devil. And I think that these people are, you know, kind of being targeted with, you know, the Satanic Temple of well, not of Reddit, but the Satanic Temple in general. That's kind of what they're trying to pull on. And like Jacob said, you know, there's a legal end to this. And I think generally, you know, I don't know to what extent they are legally successful, but I am not aware of any group being successful by touting that they actually worship Satan. So I don't know if there's a statistical existence of Satan worshipers, or if it's just, you know, people who are, like we said before, sort of experimenting with new kinds of being in Edgelord.
There's a history of, I guess this is different from worship, but there's a history of like a romantic fascination in Satan as an admirable figure in like literature and art of the last few centuries.
He tends to be very attractive in art, more attractive than we might expect him to be, especially Renaissance art, right?
Yeah, and this is because, like, for example, Paradise Lost by John Milton is the best example of this, where you have like this idea of Satan the rebel who is fighting for his freedom in a like impossible struggle against God. And this just has been a literary and artistic trope that people have been fascinated in. And ultimately, I think these movements stem from that, where they are essentially running with this ideology that Satan has become emblematic of, simply because it also comes out of a history of, not Milton specifically because he was very religious, but like later Romanticism, where there was a lot of criticism of organized religion, and it was a means of symbolizing that within the language of religion in a very in a way that was intended to flip the script, right? So I think that's why these things exist currently, is because of that history and that narrative in like modern art history and modern literary history.
There's a Key and Peele sketch about old church ladies and the devil. It's rated mature content, but for me, you know, coming from a position where, you know, we didn't really talk about the devil or Satan that much in my tradition, and then encountering people who do talk about Satan like quite a lot, it's just a little bit of culture shock. So I find that sketch to be a little entertaining, if a bit crude. We do have a couple questions in the comments here. Someone asks, TF is Dank Christian, and what does it mean to you? In my mind, a Dank Christian is a Christian who's willing to play well with others. I think that's basically it. Like, Dank Christian Memes is a place where we try to put aside our differences for the sake of a good joke, for the sake of fellowship. So I think any Christian from any denomination can be dank if they're trying to, look for the good stuff that we share and look for good times together. Anyone else want to try to put a definition on a Dank Christian as we potentially create our own denomination here?
Oh no! Remember
what have we done? We've skimmed further.
Well, I remember a couple. Last week there was the creation of the cabal by joke.
The mod cabal. Yes.
Yeah, the mod cabal was apparently started by a joke. So let's be careful. But no, I don't.
They say Martin Luther didn't mean to start any trouble either.
I don't have a definition. I really liked your definition. I'd like to hear anybody else's thoughts on that.
I guess I'll take it a slightly different direction. As we know, the term dank in the usage we use for it here was sculpted by millennials and run with by Gen Z. So I think a dank Christian, in my understanding, is a Christian who has defined their expression in Christianity in a way that connects with current humor trends among the youth and their and youth culture, because I think, for example, there are other Christian memes that you are not as likely to see in this space. Our parents and grandparents love their Christian image macros, but they don't tend to be the ones that like circulate in this space, right? So I think the insertion of the word dank there signifies a generational cultural aspect to what we're doing here as well. Even if we're not actually gatekeeping by generation, the overall cultural environment is created by these trends.
Wow, you said that, and it automatically. I've been thinking about this because I was wondering. There's a whole other community. To your point, there's other communities that kind of gather around the thought process of Christianity and humor kind of mixing, right? And so as a Black person, I see that there's thriving communities of quote unquote Black Christians that kind of lampoon and make fun of that experience. I don't necessarily see those posts over here. I don't know why. I guess maybe those people just aren't. Maybe those people just aren't on Reddit, but
I have the theory, NoneTribe.
Go ahead.
So, and me and Jacob have talked about this, that it's hard to know the demographics of Dank Christian Memes. And by and large, I think Dank Christian Memes' demographics are similar to Reddit overall. That it tends to be younger folks, tends to be younger males, and I think it does skew white. And I think it probably always had, but I found going through some of our old stuff. So I've only been mod for a year and a half. Dank Christian Memes has been around for 7 years. I found a lot more stuff that seemed like it was speaking to the experience of Black churches before we shut down. And that makes a lot of sense because we shut down largely because around the time of George Floyd's murder, we were completely bombarded by racist content and racist comments. And having to do it really forced us to basically shut down so we could learn auto mod to get ahead of this stuff. And we were way behind. So I suspect that before we actually shut down, we lost a lot of members in that community because there was just such toxicity in Reddit overall, and our sub was not prepared for it.
That's fascinating because, I spend most of my social media.
I can't prove it, but it's a theory.
I spend most of my social media time on Reddit, but I meander over to Instagram and there's just like all these interesting creators. And I have thought about that sometimes, like, man, I feel like people would laugh at this. There's this young guy right now that's making these little videos and, they're hilarious. I'm like, man, I wonder where those overlaps exist. But anywho.
You know how they say like the typical Redditors like that stereotypical like basement dweller that like doesn't really go outside?
I believe the word troglodyte is often used.
Yeah, honestly, I would say that it's honestly not too far off the mark. Like in terms of like just the way are like just the way we like use the internet. It's just that we're like I don't know what else to say. I think that like Instagram is just like something like Instagram or TikTok is just like more widely available. It's like more well known.
Well, Reddit is growing, but it's not, obviously it's not the size of Facebook or others, the ones I'm talking about.
I would also argue that people who don't use Reddit have a very bad like outlook of Reddit. Like I've talked to my other friends about this, but I'm pretty sure when it comes to people who use Reddit, we all think Reddit is great. It's an incredible forum. But then we talk to everyone that doesn't use Reddit. They all have this very negative outlook of it due to the fact that they find it to be a very kind of echo chambery kind of like platform.
Crude.
Yeah,
I know that there's a lot of people out there. So I talk to ministers about what we do in Dank Christian Memes. And one of the best things is finding ministers who don't know what Reddit is. Either they're my age and they know what it is and they've formed whatever opinions, or they're completely ignorant, and I have an opportunity to try to basically make my case for not only Reddit itself, but the kind of work we're doing and whether or not these folks might want to work with us, support our endeavors, and so forth. So I think you're right, but I think if you can find someone who's ignorant, you may have an opportunity there.
I would honestly compare individual subreddits to something more of like gated communities, where it's like if you're not someone like who's actually part of that subreddit, it's like you're gonna find some things that you might be like pretty disagreeable, but then it's like if you talk about it, you're gonna get like downvoted to no end, and then you're gonna get banned and stuff like that. I'm not here to say like it's like anything political or like anything like social, but it's just how it is. It's like even in real life, if you're like in this small gated community and like people in that community know you but they don't like you, like you're going to be like much more incentivized to like leave that community for a different one kind of thing.
Yes, and the last thing I'll say too, the difference between these different social media platforms. I mean, Reddit lends itself to words even more so than Twitter, right? Twitter lends itself to words. Instagram lends itself to images. Facebook lends itself to chaos. but
yes,
my point
indeed.
being, that is also gonna, not weed out, but sort of differentiate where people may gather.
Yeah, Twitter just thrives off of chaos, man. You seen those trending? Dude, I literally had to download an add-on just to hide the trending, because every time I went on, I just got mad at something.
That's their whole business model, is Twitter rewards
rage.
Basically rewards outrage content because it gets more clicks, makes more advertising money, more traffic. That's what you hear about off-site that you go on to look at. There's a reason why, Twitter has no way to mechanically disapprove of something other than to interact with it, which increases interaction, right? You can't downvote something on Twitter. It's one reason why I'm on here instead of there, actually, to be like personally true. Because I don't know, I was on Twitter years ago and found it was like a just terrible experience. And so I've since left. And whatever the bad rep Reddit has, it's been nicer to me in general as a place to consume content day to day and to participate.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much control they have over Reddit, that cultivating your own, front page is important to you getting whatever it is you want out of your Reddit experience. But also, if something big is going on, I can go look at our news without subscribing to our news. I can go look at our politics without subscribing to our politics. And I feel like Reddit wants that all up in your face all the time. and I'm sorry, Twitter's putting all that, up in your face all at once. And I like the ability to opt in and opt out so easily, but I don't know how many users really take full advantage of that.
Oh yeah, it's a huge advantage to Reddit. You want to move to the next question, Broclen?
Yeah, if there is a next question, we're coming to the end of our time, and I'm trying to play by the rules and not go completely over and respect you guys' time. So I have the final little plug, little story I'll say when we're all done, but I want to give everyone a chance to ask a final question or, talk about what's going on with you, plug something.
Hey, Brock.
Yeah, there's a
quick question.
There's one question down in the comments. It says favorite part of Christian history. It's a bit wide, but anybody want to take a stab at that?
The part with Jesus in it.
They're asking
Boom.
you. There you go. I'm sorry. I talked over Jesus. Let me be quiet. No,
the parts of Christian history where Jesus was there and immediately thereafter is interesting. And, occasionally we learn something new about that time period. And I think that's really cool. But I always, ask my archaeologist friend here if a headline is legitsies or just clickbaiting me, because we know if you can make your archaeological find about the Bible in some way, then you're going to get a lot more attention there.
Oh yeah, if you go to the history and archaeology channel on our Discord server and ping me with any article, I will write several paragraphs telling you what's up with it if you want.
This is now a service we offer. Thank you, Jake.
Broclen, I got a question.
Oh, well, I want to answer that one real quick for myself.
Yeah.
I'll go. What you said was a given, but I love the Old Testament stuff. I love the fact that there's different styles of literature. So there's different ways to maybe think about what's being presented, but just sort of marching through the details of Chronicles or Kings or whatever. It's build the temple just this way and all the I find all of that to be pretty interesting, and I think that feeds into a lot of nerdy people. I think like that kind of stuff, so I enjoy that part too.
There's a lot of depth there.
I would say I think if that's on the table, then that is my favorite part. I guess that kind of predates Christian history, so I wasn't thinking of it at first. But when it comes to history of Christianity, I'm a huge fan of late antiquity. So the period between the crisis of the 3rd century in the Roman Empire to the early medieval period, when Christianity is going through the process of becoming politically enfranchised and standardized in many ways. It's just a fascinating period, I think, to watch the transition over the course of several centuries from a disenfranchised religion that appealed especially to the underclass to one that was politically powerful and at the helm of clashing empires.
As soon as you said helm, I was I hope I get a chance to say I am the captain now. But anyways, Pearl has been trying to say something for a while, so let's go ahead and give you the question.
So before my question, I was just going to say I like Song of Solomon. It's basically just an entire book of Solomon describing him having sex. It's pretty funny.
Some pretty dirty stuff.
It's one of the funniest books in the Bible. Even if you aren't a Christian, I recommend reading it because it goes into pretty big detail about him having sex. It's pretty funny.
It's such a standard of romantic.
That one is spicy.
It's spicy. It's not actually in the Bible. It's a separate book that wasn't put into the Bible. There's a lot of books like that. Yeah. So for my question to Broclen, when are you going to basically do your whole Sunday Bible studies again? Because I actually really enjoyed listening to you read the Bible. So.
Oh man, I did that once, and this is the first time I've heard of anyone enjoying it. So that's that's news to me. No, that was something. Starting a Reddit talk on your own was pretty tough. So I started a couple by going through doing a little Bible study on Ezekiel about the biblically accurate angel, which is also my Reddit icon here. You're the first person to ask about that, so you're part of an elite club. I
didn't even know what you went over.
It was before I could host on DankChristianMemes. I think Pearl may have followed me when it was just me hosting on my own profile back in my early days. I think that so Void Boy did a really great breakdown of some art for us. So I think that at some point in the future, I'll try to find a collection of notable pieces of scripture and kind of zoom out on them a little bit to make their original context a little bit known. And then we can see if that makes those pieces of scripture more relatable, less relatable, more memeable, less memeable. So that's something I'm thinking about doing, but that's a homework project that I have not done yet. So I apologize for letting you in particular down.
I think that was all the questions, unless anybody's got some last ones, and you can do your thing, Broclen.
Yeah, so, just because you guys know us and this is I'm going to call this a little focus group here. We've been coordinating with Reddit Community Funds. Do any of you know what Reddit Community Funds has? Have I told you guys about this? Other than Jacob, I can't stop talking to Jacob about this.
No, I think you should probably fill us in.
So Community Funds is basically like a grant writing program within Reddit, where if you have an idea for a project that'll sort of enhance the Reddit community, they will put money towards that project. So I mentioned before that, we have our Dank Charity Alliance with five subreddits total, 5 subreddits and ourselves. And we're trying to see so last year we were all by ourselves and we were able to raise $12,000. But what a lot of fundraisers do is they have donation matching. So we're trying to see if Reddit will do donation matching. We're also trying to see if what we want to do is host a sort of meme war where each sub creates content that is, kind of references the fundraiser or references St. Jude. That when they do that might generate a donation in the name of that user. So we're working out details with them. And the last thing we want to do, like I said before, our fundraiser runs from the beginning of Lent to Easter Sunday. It would be cool to do some Reddit talks and invite some of our partners to our Reddit talk, see if they want to talk about their sub a little bit, talk about what made them decide to join us. And I want to try to get someone from St. Jude's themselves. I know they have good PR people. So I want to see if I can get one of them in a Reddit talks with us to tell us more about St. Jude and, maybe their fundraising and just know a little bit more about that community that, we're now interacting with on an annual basis. So that's just a little note. But like I said, where we start in Lent, and between then and now, we're a total of 6 subreddits now. We're going to see if we can get more partners. But of course, Community Funds being behind us and offering donation matching would be really huge. So we're crossing our fingers and hoping we can negotiate that with them. I know I just dumped a lot of information.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I think this is one of the, the things we do that's most worthwhile. And I think that's part of why I'm not so concerned about, someone who wants to partner with us and work towards this cause is pretty much okay in my book. I'm there's a lot of subreddits I wouldn't reach out to for partnerships. That's true. But I like to think that we've got a good thing going here and that more people might want to get on board. So if you know a sub or a community that might want to join our Dank Charity Alliance, send me a note, let me know, and then I can reach out to them and send them a formal invitation. And if you want to help coordinate, reach out to me because I could always use more people's help getting things organized.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely awesome. I mean, and there's also just for, just brother to brother. I mean, there's a big difference between someone partnering with you, sort of looking at your vision and mission and saying, yep, I want to partner with that versus sort of the other way around. So I think you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, well, and I like to think projects like this bring us together and, remind us of the things we can support because, there's a lot out there, like we were saying, that makes us angry, that reminds us of what we don't like. So it's good to have something positive to focus on for a little while, too. It's Broclen from the future again. I just wanted to thank everyone who supported our fundraiser for St. Jude. Thank you for listening, and until next time, may the memes bless you and keep you.